Wales is small, about 8,000 square miles, roughly the size of New Jersey, barely a fifth of England. Most people who visit see Cardiff, Snowdon, maybe a castle or two along the coast. They drive through, they take photos, they leave. But Wales has another layer, a stranger, quieter, sometimes darker layer that most visitors never touch. There is a copper mine on Anglesey that looks like the surface of Mars, where miners once minted their own currency because Britain ran out of coins. There is a mountaintop housing estate built for 4,000 people that became so toxic no one would move in, not even for free. There is a town so ashamed of its own ordinariness that it invented the longest place name in Europe just to get tourists off a train. And at number 1, there are 2 villages that Britain deliberately erased, one drowned, one blown up, and the story of what happened next changed an entire country. Trust me, you are going to want to stick around for that one. These are the 10 forgotten towns in Wales that Britain left behind. Number 10. Llanfair Polgwynol, the town that cheated the dictionary. The full name is 58 characters long. Llanfair Polgwynol Gogari Schwerndrob, Lanticilio Gogogach. It translates to St. Mary's Church in the hollow of the White Hazel near a rapid whirlpool and the Church of St. Tacilio near the Red Cave. It is the longest one-word place name in Europe. And the whole thing was made up. In 1869, an anonymous tailor on Anglesey decided his village needed more tourists. The railway had just arrived and communities along the line were competing for attention. His solution? Extend the village name to an absurd length, stringing together references to local landmarks and make it the longest station name in Britain. His identity was never confirmed. The secret died with him. But it worked. Newspapers picked it up, tourists stopped to photograph the sign, and 200,000 visitors a year still do. One tailor's joke, 157 years ago, and it is still paying off. Number 9. Paris Mountain, Mars on Anglesey. Step out of the car park beside the B5111 road near Amlosh, and you are standing on what looks like another planet. Reds, oranges, purples, yellows, vivid mineral colors splashed across a barren, cratered landscape with almost no vegetation. Pools of acid blue water sit in hollows. There is no bird song. The soil is too contaminated for most life. This is Paris Mountain, and people have mined copper here for 4,000 years. But the real story starts in 1768 when a local miner named Roland Pugh stumbled onto a massive copper deposit. What followed was a Welsh gold rush. Within years, this was the largest copper mine in the world. The owner, Thomas Williams, the Copper King, sold copper sheeting to the Royal Navy, and that copper protected the hulls of British warships at Trafalgar. The mine ran so short on official currency to pay its workers that the company minted its own. An estimated 10 million Anglesey pennies went into circulation, used by miners and the general public across the region. Underground mining ceased in 1904. The tunnels are sealed, but there are still an estimated 6 million tons of metal down there, waiting. Number 8. Anglesey Barracks, Dinorwig Quarry, Snowdonia's Forgotten Street. Dinorwig Quarry was electrified in 1905. The barracks where its workers lived never were. The men who ran one of the most advanced slate operations in the world went home every night to candlelight. The barracks sit 600 meters above sea level on a mountainside above Llanberis. 22 slate cottages, each with 2 rooms, a bedroom with 4 cots, and a living area with a fireplace. No plumbing, no running water. Quarrymen fetched water from the nearest stream and carried coal up the hillside, paying for it out of wages that already had a shilling deducted for rent. The gaps between the slate walls let the weather in. The tenants shared their beds with fleas and rats. On Monday mornings, returning workers would lay their blankets over hot bricks to drive out the damp and vermin. Dinorwig was the second largest slate quarry in the world, employing over 3,000 men at its peak. In 1937, the council declared the barracks unfit for human habitation. The quarry kept running for another 32 years. The 22 roofless cottages are still there, free to visit, standing in a line on the mountain like teeth in a jawbone. Number 7. Penrhys. the estate on the mountaintop. In 1968, planners opened Wales's largest public housing project, 951 houses for 4,000 people, perched on a hilltop 1,100 feet above the Rhondda Valleys. It was supposed to be a showcase, panoramic views, a revolutionary district heating system powered by a central coal-fired boiler with insulated pipes running to every house. Then the 1973 oil crisis hit. Energy costs became ruinous. Anyone who could afford to leave, left. The houses they vacated were filled with families relocated from other estates, concentrating unemployment and deprivation on a mountaintop accessible only by a single steep road, battered by what locals called sideways rain. The front doors of the houses had been designed to face away from one another, an architectural choice meant to give residents privacy that instead ensured neighbors never saw each other. By the 1980s, the estate had become synonymous with despair. The government tried to save it. They refurbished the empty houses under the Priority Estate Program. The newly refurbished houses were vandalized while they stood empty, because the estate's reputation was so damaged that no one would move in. Most of Penrhys has now been demolished. What remains, beside roughly 300 surviving buildings, is the medieval pilgrimage site that existed on the hilltop centuries before any of this. A holy well and a statue of the Virgin Mary, standing quietly above concrete foundations where 4,000 people once lived and then didn't. Number 6. North Wales Hospital. The asylum that won't die. This one did not begin in cruelty. In 1842, a group of Welsh nobles, clergy and gentry met at Denbighshire Infirmary, appalled that there was almost no provision for the mentally ill in Wales. They wanted a hospital where patients would be treated in Welsh, their own language, rather than shipped off to English institutions. They petitioned the royal family, secured over £200 in donations, rallied 5 Welsh counties behind the project, and built it. The Denbigh Asylum opened in 1848 on 20 acres of donated land. For decades, it was a model of progressive care. By 1956, it held 1,500 patients. Closure came in stages from 1991 to 1995 under the Care in the Community initiative, and then the building entered a kind of purgatory that it has never left. It was purchased in 2003 for £310,000 by a company called Ace Bench Investments, which transferred it to an offshore entity registered in the British Virgin Islands. The true ownership became deliberately opaque. Arson attacks followed in 2008, 2017, 2018. Looters stripped the interior. The Army blew up the building's doors during a joint exercise with North Wales Police. The same government that closed the hospital under Care in the Community was now, through its military, inflicting structural damage on the building it had emptied. It was featured on Most Haunted. It was compulsorily purchased by the local council. A £107 million redevelopment has been proposed, but the Grade 2 star-listed main building is still there, windows smashed, corridors full of graffiti, home now only to protected colonies of bats. It refuses to fall down. If you are enjoying this so far, hit that thumbs up, because we are about to get into the entries where the ground disappears. Number 5. Blaenau Ffestiniog. The town that roofed the world. When planners drew the boundary for Snowdonia National Park in 1951, they went around Blaenau Ffestiniog. Deliberately. The town's landscape, gray-black slate, enormous waste tips, terraced quarry faces, was judged too damaged, too industrial, too ugly to be worth protecting. They literally cut it out of the map. This is the town that roofed the world. By 1873, it was called Slate City, the largest town in the Welsh quarrying areas. The Oakley Mine was the largest underground slate mine on the planet. 26 floors, over 50 miles of underground tramway, a vertical span of nearly 1,500 feet. At its peak, over 4,000 men worked here, and Blaenau Ffestiniog became the first town in Britain to have electric streetlights. The population hit 11,274 in 1881. Then, cheaper materials arrived. The quarries closed. The town hollowed out. But during World War II, the town got a secret second life. Churchill needed somewhere to hide the National Gallery's entire collection. Over 2,000 paintings, including works by Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Rubens. His order was blunt. Hide them in caves and cellars, but not one picture shall leave this island. Engineers chose the Manod slate mine near Blaenau Festiniog. They blew open the entrance with explosives, built brick bungalows with air conditioning inside the caves, and trucked the paintings in under the logos of chocolate companies to maintain secrecy. Sometimes the trucks had to deflate their tires to squeeze under low bridges on the mountain roads. The art stayed underground for 4 years, and the cave conditions were so stable that they revolutionized how the National Gallery stored its collection after the war. The town that was too ugly for a national park saved the nation's most beautiful paintings. Number 4. Llanwrydyn, the village that rises from the dead. In 2022, during a severe heat wave, Lake Vyrnwy in Powys dropped to 60% capacity. As the water receded, stone walls began to break the surface. Then house foundations, then a bridge, then gate posts, still standing after more than 130 years underwater. Photographers drove from across Britain. It was the first time the ruins had been visible since a drought in 1976. This is Old Lambton, a farming village that Liverpool drowned in 1888. In 1877, the city identified the Vyrnwy Valley as a site for a new reservoir. The population of Lambton were not consulted. They presented a signed petition against the proposals. It didn't matter. The Liverpool Corporation Waterworks Act passed in 1880. Construction began in 1881. The dam, the first large stone-built dam in the UK, costing £620,000, roughly £90 million in today's money, was completed in 1888. A church that had stood since the 13th century was dismantled. 2 chapels, 3 inns, 10 farmhouses, and 37 houses were demolished. A new village was built downstream for the displaced. Its new church was consecrated on November 27, 1888, exactly 1 day before engineers closed the dam's valve and the valley began to fill. That timing was deliberate. Today the community has 257 people. As of 2011, only 38% could speak Welsh, down from 60% in 2001. The drowning didn't just destroy a village, it eroded a language, slowly, over generations. And every few decades, when the rain stops long enough, the old village reminds everyone it is still down there. Number 3. Llanwrydyd Wells, the town that raced a horse and snorkeled a bog. In 1732, the Reverend Theophilus Evans was feeling unwell. He noticed a particularly healthy-looking frog sitting in a sulfur spring near Llanwrydyd. He reasoned that whatever was keeping the frog so robust might work for him too. He drank from the well. He reportedly recovered. And so began the spa town of Llanwrydyd Wells, built around what the locals called Ffynnon Drewlyd, the stinking well, named for its hydrogen sulfide smell. By the Victorian era, trains brought health tourists from across Britain. Then the springs dried up. The tourists stopped coming. The town, population 850, the smallest in Wales, needed a new draw. What it came up with was competitive absurdity. The World Bog Snorkeling Championships, held annually since the 1980s at Wayn Rhyd Peat Bog, require competitors to swim 2 lengths of a 60-yard trench cut through peat without using conventional swimming strokes. The current record is 1 minute 12.34 seconds. Lonely Planet named it one of the top 50 must-do experiences in the world. Then there is the Man vs. Horse Marathon, running since 1980. For 24 consecutive years, the horse won. When a human cyclist finally beat the horses in 2004, he collected a prize that had been accumulating since the race began. There is also wife-carrying, worm-charming, tin bath racing, and the World Alternative Games. A town of 850 people, 4 trains a day on the Heart of Wales line, 1 main street over a river bridge. It survived losing its spa, losing its tourists, and losing any obvious reason to exist. Then it decided that the world needed competitive bog snorkeling, and against all logic, the world agreed. Number 2. Nant Gwrteirin, the village cursed by monks. According to local legend, 3 monks once passed through this valley on the Llyn Peninsula, heading for the holy island of Bardsey. The local fishing community chased them away. The monks, before leaving, cursed the valley with 3 prophecies. The ground would never be consecrated, members of the same family would never marry each other, and the Nant would succeed and fail 3 times before failing forever. The quarry opened in 1861, producing granite cobblestones for the streets of Liverpool, Manchester, and Birkenhead. A village, Porth y Nant, was built to house the workers. The community was so isolated that goods came and went mainly by sea. The access road, known as Screw Hill, had a maximum gradient of 1 and 2.5, 6 hairpin corners, and no passing places. It was occasionally used as a motorsport venue because it was too dangerous for normal driving. The quarry closed. The village emptied during World War II. The last family left. Then in the 1970s, a hippie commune called New Atlantis moved in. They had no water, no electricity, no sewerage. They burned the floors and doors for firewood and covered the walls in graffiti. They left. The village was a ruin. Then Dr. Carl Klaus, a GP who had moved to the area to raise his children as Welsh speakers, bought the wreckage from a roadstone company in 1978. Over 3 decades and £5 million in redevelopment, he turned it into the National Welsh Language and Heritage Centre, officially opened in 2011. Today, 40,000 visitors a year come to Nant Gorthyren. 600 adults a year learn Welsh there, in a village that was itself once a Welsh-speaking community, isolated, abandoned, and cursed to fail forever. 3 monks were wrong, or maybe the curse just ran its course. Number 1, Capel Sellen and Mynyd Epynt. Remember Tryweryn? Drive the A4212 between Bala and Trosvynyd. On one side, bare Welsh upland rolls to the horizon. On the other, water. A vast, still reservoir called Llyn Sellen, its surface often perfectly flat, reflecting nothing but sky. No houses on the shore, no boats, no sound but wind. Pull into the lay-by and walk to the small memorial garden at the dam wall, and you will find yourself standing above a village. It is under the water. It has been under the water since 1965. Its name was Capel Sellen. The villagers first learned what was planned from a newspaper a few days before Christmas 1955. Liverpool Corporation wanted a reservoir. The Tryweryn Valley had been chosen. Capel Sellen, a farming community, one of the last Welsh-only speaking settlements in the area, would be destroyed. The villagers marched on Liverpool twice in 1956. 125 local Welsh authorities opposed the plan. The parliamentary bill went to a vote. Not one of Wales's 36 MPs supported it. It passed anyway. 25 years earlier, a similar erasure had already happened. In 1939, an army officer arrived at Mynyd Epynt in Powys, struggled with the Welsh language, and asked the local schoolchildren to identify and locate 52 homes. By December, every household had received an eviction notice. 54 farms and a pub. The evictions happened during lambing season. By June 1940, approximately 400 people were gone. The army seized 30,000 acres, the largest military training zone in Wales. A farmer named Thomas Morgan returned to his farmhouse daily after the eviction to light a fire in the hearth, protecting the stonework. He was warned repeatedly to stop. One day a military officer told him, "We've blown up the farmhouse. You won't need to come here anymore." The army then destroyed most of the original structures, chapels, cemeteries. In 1988, they built a fake village on the same land for urban warfare training. A fighting and built-up area zone, complete with a mock chapel and imitation gravestones. The mock gravestones stand in the same area where real gravestones at Capel y Babel still bear the names of the people who were thrown out. Back at Capel Sellen, the reservoir opened in October 1965. A child displaced from the village had been named Tryweryn Evans. As an adult, he said, "For years afterwards I used to think, are we ever going back there? It might have just been a bad dream." In the early 1960s, a Welsh author named Mike Stevens drove to a ruined cottage wall near Llanrhystad and painted 3 words, Cofuch Tryweryn. Remember Tryweryn. That wall has been vandalized and restored repeatedly over the decades. In 2019, someone demolished part of it. Within weeks, over 100 Cofuch Tryweryn murals appeared across Wales and around the world. Police treated the demolition as a hate crime. A year after the flooding, Plaid Cymru won its first seat in Parliament. Within a decade, a Welsh language society was agitating for official recognition. Within 30 years, Wales had its own devolved government. Welsh artist Tim Davies once walked the dried-up reservoir bed during a drought and found a single rusty 5-inch nail from the old village. He used it as inspiration for a floor sculpture. 5,000 cast wax nails, one for each person who protested the flooding. 2 villages erased, one drowned, one blown up. Both Welsh-speaking, both rural, both deemed expendable. And on a roadside wall on the A487, 3 words that an entire nation refuses to let disappear. Wales has more than castles and coastline. It has a memory, and that memory has teeth. For me, it is Capel Sealan. A village under still water, a wall that keeps getting repainted, and a country that decided it would never let it happen again. That one is going to stay with me for a long time. Which of these places surprised you the most? And which town did I miss? Drop it in the comments. If you want more like this, subscribe. There is plenty more of Britain that nobody talks about.